Welcome to Something to Say, where we bring voices from diverse backgrounds who will share their unique stories and perspectives on finding their passion and provide insights on how you can find yours. Join us as host Greg DeShields guides us through this enlightening journey.
Welcome to Something to Say podcast, a unique platform that amplifies the voices of individuals from various backgrounds sharing their passion. I'm your host, Greg DeShields, and I'm pleased to bring you another exciting episode. Thank you for joining us today at our podcast interview with Naomi Kurzyna from Compass Real Estate. Naomi is one of Philadelphia's most trusted and highly recommended realtors, known for exceptional client care, strategic pricing, and unmatched expertise in Philadelphia condos, luxury waterfront properties, and city neighborhoods. As a full-time agent with Compass Real Estate, she specializes in communities such as Waterfront Square, Northern Liberties, Old City, Society Hill, Rittenhouse Square, Queen Village, Graduate Hospital, Fairmount, Fishtown, and surrounding suburban communities. By the way, they're all the best neighborhoods of the city of Philadelphia. Drawing from a dynamic background in sales, marketing, and customer service, her contract negotiation skills are quite unique, and she is able to provide a very global perspective to every real estate transaction. Having lived in 9 US states, and abroad in Germany, Italy, and Belgium, she is fluent in Dutch, English, and German, offering an understanding of what it takes to navigate big moves, lifestyle changes, and everything in between. Her professional foundation was built in travel tourism and hospitality industries, where five-star service was really the standard. This experience shaped her client first approach, combining strategic marketing, attention to detail, and commitment to exceptional service in everything she does. After years of suburban living, she brings a lived appreciation for the nuances of relocation and lifestyle transactions. Naomi's commitment to excellence has earned her multiple service and top sales awards, recognizing her for both her unwavering dedication to client success and her performance in real estate sales and marketing. She is a proud member of the National Pennsylvania Association of Realtors with a track record of five-star reviews across Google and Zillow. She continues to exceed expectations, earning the trust and loyalty of her clients through every single transaction.
So, welcome, Naomi. I am so thrilled to have you do a Something to Say podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. When you're as passionate as I am about real estate, there's always something to say.
And I have to tell you, I was, when you and I first met, I said, oh my God, this is somebody who definitely has something to say. And I was so anxious to do a podcast with you because I knew you had like the perfect personality to be interviewed. So for me, this is like finally a really fun interview. So I appreciate you joining us today.
My pleasure. We have a great friend in common.
We do. We
Yeah,
absolutely do.
she's incredible.
So, a big part of what I do want to talk to you about is centered upon real estate. And, the market has been, I guess, so incredibly complicated to understand, or maybe fully something that people can appreciate. And to that degree, I'm anxious to get into a long conversation about that. But I also realize that you have this background in hospitality, which does resonate with our audience. So I would love to also kind of spice it up with a little bit of hospitality stuff as well.
Sure. Absolutely.
So, of course, in this day and age, we have to always go to Google and figure out like what we're going to talk about when we talk to people. And I recently read one of the reviews that you had. And I think for our audience, I should start by saying that it was such a really nice Google review that I wanted to at least begin our conversation. So it said, Naomi helped my friend and I find an apartment in Philadelphia with us not knowing much about where we wanted to live or what we wanted to do in that process. So they said that you took them to numerous apartments on various days and sometimes multiple visits during the course of the week, and that we knew you were extremely busy. But you always had a smile on your face, and that they were just so appreciative of how you handled it, and that they were so grateful for your hard work. Now, that's one, and I know you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Google reviews, but if anyone wants to know why, yeah, I'm interviewing you, that's a perfect example. But congrats on that review.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, they were wonderful. They're very young professionals and they were relocating to a city from New Jersey. And I think they were kind of transitioning out of their parents and from college, and having relocated myself so many times, I think close to 25, I understand what's important to them, and everyone deserves a home. And I was happy to help them. They were delightful. Plus, I gain a lot too working with people like this.
So we typically like to spend a little time before we dive into our conversation, just wanting to get to know you. And this is the part that I was excited about, to get to know you. So we'll ask some icebreaker questions, and then we'll just kind of go a little bit deeper and learn more about your story. We do want to talk about the real estate industry and get some, expert advice from you, and then dive into some questions that you shared with us because I thought they were pretty provocative and will provide our audience a lot of great insight. So my first question is, what's your favorite childhood memory?
So I had to think about this a lot because I've had a tremendous amount of activity as I was growing up. I've moved, I think, close to 25 times at this point.
Mhm.
And living in Europe and having a mother who is Dutch and a father that's American and two sisters, all three of us born in 3.5 years, there was a lot to unpack there. And this is going to sound very, very surprising, but as an adult, I think my favorite memory from childhood actually is moving from one place to the other, learning different cultures, different foods, learning how to communicate with people. It is probably the most enriching and educational component of my life. It makes it memorable, it makes it relatable. So I would say definitely moving probably was my absolute favorite part. And boy, did we move.
Wow.
From Oklahoma to Belgium to Italy to California, and then West Point, where I ultimately ended up meeting my husband.
Wow. I can certainly share your thoughts about that. My father was in the Air Force, so we
Yes.
did a lot with him. So we lived in England for some time in Cromer, and then we moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and then we were in Abilene, Texas, and then we came back to the Philadelphia area. Actually, we were headed to Greenland, and my mother said, "That's enough."
Yeah.
She's like, "We're two boys. I'm not taking them to Greenland." But I do recall as a child, that was like one of the most interesting and probably enjoyable aspects of my life because you're just exposed to so many different things, just like when you think you've got it figured out, you have to pack up and go somewhere else. So
Yeah. And you can leave those people you didn't get along with behind.
that's true.
Although that's definitely not something I recommend. It's so educational, and we're not alone in this world.
That's true.
It really shaped me into the profession that I'm in and the hospitality industry.
And I think that's a big part of what made it work for me from a hospitality perspective, because you get used to change,
Yes.
moving.
Yes.
All right, so this is a little bit of a different twist. The question is, what was your biggest failure, and what did you learn from that experience?
So I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned, I don't like to name things as failures. We all fail, we all grow, but they really are part of the journey of life. But one of the biggest lessons I've learned is to listen more, because I'm very energetic. You probably know. I'm excitable and I'm extremely optimistic about things. And because of our life experiences and having experienced so much, it makes us relatable to so many people that we meet. And you have to just kind of learn to be quiet and just listen more, and not always share what your experiences are. So I think that's been truly my biggest lesson, and probably what I struggle with the most, but I'm getting really good at it. Listen more.
And that idea of listening more can certainly put you to the test when there's a lot you want to give, to the conversation. I
Yeah.
find myself taking a ton of notes just so that I don't say anything. So, hey,
And so you remember it.
that's true. I have to say though, I just recently, well, literally driving home today, I was listening to Freakonomics on satellite radio, and there was a discussion about failure. So their discussion about it was how we look at failure from a post-mortem perspective. But they said, what if you did a pre-mortem? Which was an amazing concept of, if we were embarking upon a major project, what are the things that we think would go wrong? And they spend a great deal of time swimming in that, talking about the things that could go wrong. And then they also challenge people to give us ways to correct the things that could possibly go wrong. But it was
Right.
at this concept of failure and saying, well, what if we had the chance to think about it in advance? So
And anticipate
exactly,
the outcome.
exactly.
And I know in real estate, that's the number one success story, is being able to anticipate
Mhm.
what the next step will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so this one's very fun. We love to ask this question. For years, we've gotten very interesting responses. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would that be and why?
Hands down, it's the easiest question for me.
Okay.
And it might surprise you. Number one, Martin Luther King Jr. He has been my favorite person in history forever. What a powerful man that took into consideration the humanity of life and of, I don't know, communicating, equality. Hands down, Martin Luther King Jr. And then the second person is Princess Diana. I don't know why I'm obsessed with her. She overcame, and never, ever lost her ability to connect with people. And I find that absolutely fascinating. I do believe these are personality traits that are innate. And man, did they hit the jackpot with her. What a tragedy that she passed away. But those are definitely two people I would love to sit down. And then with my dad. I'd love to sit down and have dinner with my dad again.
Wow. Yeah, that would be.
We'll get into that later.
So, it's interesting. Both of them have been previously referenced in one of our interviews.
Really?
Yes. Martin Luther King has actually come up a few times, and I'll come back to that. So Princess Diana came up. We were interviewing someone from the LGBTQ community, and it was all about fashion. It was all about, and the conversation just got so incredibly involved because the person I was interviewing knew everything about the dress, the hair, the makeup, jewelry, and it was just such an interesting conversation about, if we had the opportunity to sit down, first I would ask, where did you get this and where'd you get that? It was so funny. But
yeah,
it was kind of interesting that I like as a follow-up with that question is like, what food would you want to have served during that?
Wow. Sushi. Because it's easy to eat and I won't choke on it. Because I would be so enamored with sitting at the table with them. I don't know. And definitely no alcohol, because I would want to remember it forever.
Forever.
Like, literally, I would want to remember it forever. I don't know. I like sushi because it's a quick bite and then it goes down and you're done.
Wow. It's an ultimate like networking meal. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know why that came to mind, but it definitely wouldn't be something with mozzarella cheese and pasta. No.
All right, so let's get a little bit deeper in your about you and your story. So, how big is your inner circle?
It's shocking. It's shocking to say this because I've moved so many times and I know so many people, but it's actually relatively small and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's my husband, who I've been married to for 35 years this year. It's my two children, one married, one's getting married. Probably my sisters. I have two sisters in that, we've gone through everything together, and my mom and my in-laws. I have two very, very dear best friends that couldn't be more different. They don't even know each other. And other than that, that's who keep me grounded and the people that I call the most for advice. I've met so many friends and so many people. Like the friend that you and I have in common, but I see her maybe once every 5 years. But it's like time has never gone by. So for my inner circle, it's really, really small. It really is.
Often that is the response that we get, and so many times the language that they use to describe it is really centered upon the intimacy, that these are the people that are going to tell you you did a great job or you did a crappy job, and really appreciate how they share that. But I've had some people use a phrase that they are not their inner circle, but their front row, which I thought was really cool. That, in the performance of your life, these are the people who sit in the front row. And as you kind of gaze upon them or they engage with you, they help advise you and direct you through. So that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, and they're your biggest cheerleaders. Why
Yeah,
wouldn't you want them in the front row?
absolutely. Right.
That's really cool. I like that.
That's a good
I
one.
might use it. Sorry.
It's usable. There's no trademark on it and nothing.
Okay.
All right. So who has had the most influence in your life?
There are so many people. Some people that I don't even know that I've just watched a documentary on. But the person closest to me is probably my dad. He passed away 2 years ago, and he was probably the most brilliant human being I've ever known, besides my husband. But he was very kind, unassuming, and wise and loving. And I mourn his passing. I miss him so very, very much. But I think the sadness has kind of turned into this overwhelming sense of gratefulness that he was mine. He was my dad. And I am so unbelievably appreciative that I had him my whole life, minus 2 years. I mean, so I would say he's probably the biggest influence.
And you can hear it in your voice and you can see it in your face. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why I like to ask that question, because for someone who has influence, you like to tell the story about them. If you can stand on top of a mountain or you can get in front of a microphone, whenever you can do that shout out to them, it just means that much more. So
he was just so kind. And, he always said, kindness doesn't cost you a thing. And that has really resonated with me. It really, really has. It costs you more to be mean and angry than it does to just be kind. It leaves everybody happy most of the time.
Similar, I think my parents used to always embed this phrase that saying you're sorry doesn't cost you anything, which I always thought was, well, because I had 4 brothers, and it was a whole lot easier just to say, I'm sorry, and like leave it alone.
Move on. Yes. Oh, wow.
All right. So this is probably not the best follow-up question, but it has an upside and a downside. So when was the best year of your life and when was the worst year?
Every year is a gift. And that's really how I see it. When I tell you I'm optimistic, It's not an exaggeration. I just am. Have I had incredibly challenging moments in my life? Yes. Have I had the rug pulled out from underneath me? Yes. But I've always come back stronger and more empathetic to others. But I think probably the one part of my life that brought me to my knees was when I was diagnosed with cancer.
Mm.
And that was 2 years ago. And I remember I was driving home from Doylestown, actually, in a rental car, and I got the call. And she didn't ask me where I was or what I was doing. And she said, "I'm sorry to tell you that you have cancer." And I went into an absolute, complete, and total shock. And my next question was, "Am I going to die?"
Mm.
And she said, "I don't know."
Mm.
And that, I'm still clawing my way out of that one.
Mhm.
It was 2 very, very challenging years. Thank God for my husband and my inner circle who are extremely strong. I'm the emotional one. He's the, the straight and narrow scientist kind of mindset, stoic, and very fact-based.
Mhm.
But that brought me to my knees, and I had to do a lot of hard work to get out of that. I had a lot of support, but that work was mine to do.
Mhm.
And it's made me a better person, more appreciative of life. And I actually don't remember a lot that happened before that.
Mm.
So I would say that was probably the most challenging.
Well, I can certainly empathize with you. I was several years ago diagnosed with lymphoma, which I remember when I got the call, and I was literally like getting ready to pull into into our development for our house, and I just pulled over on the side of the road, and I was just trying to like digest. And I asked the same question: "Does this mean I'm going to die?" And no, you have one of the best doctors in the world, and that sort of thing.
Ah,
So,
thank
and
God for your doctor.
oh, he was amazing. I mean, he was a forerunner of
Wow.
treatment. He's at Penn, but the first person I called was my brother, and he was amazing. He just like, and I said, "I'm looking at my house. Maybe I should go in the house and talk to you." And he was like, "No," but yeah, it certainly, to your point, it like really impacts the way that you look at life. It really, to your point, allows you to really embrace the people who care about you, the people who love you, and the energy that they give you. It gives you the strength to kind of navigate that. But so listen, we were supposed to have a great time. We could have like a couple of glasses of wine to share some of our
Let's do
stories
it.
as we go forward. Say
I
something.
just wanted to follow up with the one thing that I learned the most, and that is gratitude is critical, but it's not always easy to find. So you just have to stay grounded and go to bed every night and just be grateful for everything,
Mm,
even the small stuff.
mm. Right. So we have a phrase that my husband and I like, like something's ailing you. And I'll say, yeah, but there are 99% of your body is doing everything it needs to do. It's just that one thing's not working. So
Yeah.
grateful
I'm
of the
glad
other
you're
things
okay,
working.
Greg. I really am.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you're okay.
So, but like I said, we'll have a big glass of wine and then we'll catch up with that. So,
Okay. Sounds good.
all right. So I want to transition and talk about the real estate industry, because so much happens. So the first thing I would want to find out from you, are there some common misconceptions that you'd like to clear up?
Well, there are. There's a huge misconception, at least for me, that realtors are in it for the money and they're in it for the commission. But in order to be in this specific industry, it has to be so much more than that because it can sometimes be 16-hour days for weeks and weeks on end.
Mm.
The drive for realtors, especially for me, is the constant drive to want to assist other people with finding their home. And everyone deserves a home. They work hard for a home, whether it's to buy, sell, or rent, it makes no difference. That's the driving force. and then to provide them with exceptional white glove service to get them from point A to point B. And it starts way before point A even starts, and it continues way past point B. And the money and the commission is just the bonus, at least for me. I find a tremendous amount of fulfillment in helping others. So I think that's a very, very common misconception. This is not an easy line of work. It is incredibly challenging. There's highs and lows. There are people that are going to treat you horribly. And then there are people who are going to leave you a 5-star review. And you have to be able to navigate both. And just because they treat you horribly doesn't necessarily mean they still don't have a right to own a home. In all my transactions, I've come close to firing literally just one person.
Wow.
And she would scream at me every single night. And I looked at my husband and I said, I don't know if I can take this to the end. And he said, honey, if you don't do it, no one will. And I did. I took her all the way to the end. And now we're actually really close. But it's a very emotional thing for people. And I think that's the most common misconception in real estate.
So it's not necessarily something that we had talked about, but I think for a lot of our listeners, it's kind of like where the rubber hits the road. So we hear so much about the challenge of home ownership and the cost of real estate, and especially looking at maybe, I guess, Gen Z, kind of wanting that first home and maybe not getting that, or even finding affordable housing in a metropolitan area. So when we kind of bundle all that together, like, what are some of your thoughts about that? True? Is there misconceptions around that? What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, I just think every situation is different.
Mhm. Are the interpretation that people have about the market being so difficult that home ownership is maybe out of reach? Or that,
Understood.
if
I
I'm
don't think it's out of reach.
Okay.
I just think you have to align yourself with someone who's going to support you and guide you and know the ins and outs of the industry. So in the suburbs, it's been really a crazy market, but here in Philadelphia, it's been kind of stable. So I had one buyer in the suburbs. This is probably my biggest win. I think my biggest win was I had a buyer. Her finances were tight. They worked really, really hard. And I firmly believe they had a right and a need to own their own home. And there were 25 offers on this home. And so we worked really, really hard to strategically place their offer so that it was a win. And that involved the listing agent, that involved the sellers, that involved the buyers, that involved me as the buyer's agent. And we won 25 offers. And even throughout the process, I still managed to get them $7,000 cash.
Oh. So
you have to have the ability to work together. And a buyer and seller both need to feel like they're winning something. Something. It might not be the perfect negotiation. I might not be able to get someone exactly what they want, but I'll get close to it. And communication with the agent on the other side, or even with the sellers if they're not represented, is really, really key. Understanding the nuances of it. So do I think it's obtainable, to answer your question? Yes, I do. I think it's a really, really tough market if your expectations are way up here. If you want to own a home, then you're going to have to kind of give a little to make it happen.
Got it.
But it is possible.
And I think the other follow-up question, and I'll move on from there, but there's so many things to ask you about. When it comes to inventory, so some of your thoughts about home inventory, but also here in Philadelphia, oh my God, there's so much residential, which I'm assuming is either condo or apartment. So are you inventory flush in that respect? And then on the other side, like, what's the thoughts around home inventory?
There's plenty of inventory where there isn't a strong need. If you're in a neighborhood that's a very, very strong neighborhood, or you have a unicorn property, then you're going to have to work really, really hard to get that property. I just think real estate is cyclical and there's a time and a place for everyone. And you have to really help buyers and sellers understand, is now your time, or is your time 2 years from now? Or what is it you're looking for? In Philadelphia, the condo market is always stable. You're not going to get into a condo and get a ton of money back. Maybe in 5 years. Philadelphia also has a very high transfer tax, so the closing costs are really, really high. Row homes that need a lot of work are not selling for top dollar. But some people don't want, homeowners to put in the work. So it's a niche. And I don't know how to answer that question emphatically one way or the other. It all depends. It depends on who your client is and where they are in the search process.
Understood.
It's really, really different. Like, I live here in this condo association, and last year they were all selling at a plus, and now they're not selling at a plus because some need renovations. And then they're coming in and they're renovating, and then they're selling it at a plus. It just changes all the time. I think the key for any buyer or seller is to align yourself with an incredible agent who understands how to adapt. And my strong suit is adapting, but I also am very inclined to work with people that relocate to Philadelphia. So my market, for example, is relocation with corporate or medical, or from New York City to here, or having moved 25 times, there's a reason why my husband and I settled in Philadelphia. It's because we absolutely love this city. We love it. And I had the house in the burbs, and the kids never came home. So we did away with it. And now we live here with one car, and we walk everywhere, even on days like this.
And that shows true love, trust me.
Yeah. And I also think it's important to align yourself with an agent who works for a really, really great and powerful broker. So regarding inventory, for example, my broker has a bunch of inventory that's an exclusive, where the sellers are not necessarily ready to sell or ready to hit the open market, but yet we as agents know all about them. So if you do have a house that's in a very, very high demand area and a very, very motivated buyer or a seller, you can make that connection. So my broker happens to be very, very good at that and giving us the tools to be really, really successful.
Wow.
And I'll pitch them. I mean, it's Compass.
You are filled with so many good insights. I really appreciate that. I think the thing I did walk away with is kind of understanding there is this cyclical and this, ebb and flow of how the market itself may position itself. And I think as someone who's, seeking a piece of real estate, having that knowledge can also help you be better at research. But
And don't feel like you have to do it alone. Align yourself with someone who will listen to you and understand you, and someone who's going to be very, very honest. You might not hear exactly what you want to hear, but you'll always get honesty. And not every day is somebody's time.
Well, now we understand why you get those 5-star ratings. You have real passion for this. I do want to ask you though, because of the integration of innovation, artificial intelligence, has there been any breakthrough that you have found that is really exciting for you?
Real estate and AI is extremely exciting. I speak 4 languages, 3 of them fluently. English is not my first language. So using AI to assist me with writing newsletters, or, making something a little bit more concise and a little bit more data-driven, AI is critical. I welcome it. I think it's important. I think, especially in real estate, it can really, really help your clients navigate. It's helpful with negotiation ideas. Sometimes I learn something. I don't know. I find it very, very helpful. I welcome it. Bring it on.
I'm glad you said that. We recently did a webinar with one group, and it was really emphasized that it's a tool and how you are able to navigate the use of that tool is how it can really drive you and your business in a more productive environment. But I want to now, talk a little more specific about, you and the work that you've done. So the first thing I did want to kind of dive into is that, you've lived in 9 different cities, I guess, in the United States, and you've lived abroad in Germany, Italy, and Belgium. I mean, like all of those are coolest places. How is that? How has that global experience so really shaped you in the way that you guide your clients through relocation and the major lifestyle transitions that they're probably going to have?
So the moving, my mom is Dutch and my dad is American. So we lived in Europe, and the first language in our home that was spoken was Dutch. And how that has shaped me with relocation is getting up and moving to a new place and not understanding anything about it and being told you have to leave in like a month and buy a house because your relocation benefits are going to run out. That is an extremely emotional and high stress, anxiety environment. The person who's being relocated can probably go to work, meet people, and kind of, get into the flow of things that way. But if you have a family and they're starting over, it's just critical to understand how to help people ease into a new location, help them understand the real estate market if that's what they're looking to do, or the rental market, understanding the foods, the culture, the people. Every city that I've ever lived in has been unique in its own way. What makes Philadelphia so unique is that it has all these neighborhoods that are within 2 blocks of each other, and they're all different. The school system is the Philadelphia school system. I don't get heavily involved in that. I always feel that to give you an example, we lived in North Carolina and the school system wasn't the best. It was a very, very small town. My children are smart. I needed them to succeed in life. I wanted them to succeed in life, as any parent does. But the education really does come from the home. Mm. The school system just magnifies what you do at home. So I don't get bogged down in education or the educational school system. It's different for everybody. Everybody gets something out of it. But helping them adapt, even the local government, the taxes, the homestead exemptions, the neighborhoods, the condos versus co-ops versus row homes. It's what I love to do. I don't know. I work very, very hard at it. And I make sure that their experience is a pleasant one. It's a seamless one. And a lot of the really knit and grit happens behind the scenes, and they don't even know about it.
Well, it's interesting too, because in a city like Philadelphia, there's such diversity in terms of the real estate and, your degree, your perspective of how do I match that, and if someone's not familiar with the city, it's also helping them get comfortable with, what is the culture of the city and what's the nuance of the neighborhood and that sort of thing. So
yeah.
I can
Or
see
was it better to live in the suburbs?
right.
We have great suburbs too. Yeah.
And
it's
we
exciting.
also are a very unique area because we have these multi-cities in such a close, uh, proximity, which also can help people feel that the area that they're moving to has a lot to offer, a lot more than
Yeah.
just the local
Even
metropolitan.
transportation.
Right.
I mean, when we moved to Germany from North Carolina, we had 2 very, very small kids. One was in elementary school and one was in nursery school. Literally uprooting us and dumping us in a foreign country in another small city. If it wasn't for our relocation advisor, I don't know where I would be. It's a critical aspect of real estate that I happen to enjoy a lot.
Well, you put that in great perspective for people to have a deeper appreciation. I do want to go a little bit further because, as I said earlier, with your background in the hospitality industry and the work that you've done around contract negotiations, how do you combine that kind of exceptional service with the strategic marketing and pricing that you have to give your clients to be able to remain competitive in what you do?
Sure. First of all, it's a deep understanding of what their wants and needs are. You really, really have to listen to them and let them guide you in the direction that they want you to go into, not how we want to do it, how they want to do it. And then the pricing, you have to really understand what they can afford, what they're willing to put out there, and then you just negotiate. As in my mind, a seller deserves to get what their property is worth. And I make that very, very clear to my buyers. And then on the flip side, I also make it very, very clear to the sellers. To price your home out of the market value is a negative. It just always is. But days on market really doesn't scare me either, because what you're going to purchase that home for is what you're in control over. The worst thing that can happen is someone says no. I do firmly believe that everybody should have a win, because if you give everybody a win, then it makes it seamless and it makes it easy and it makes it happy. And it's probably one of the most standout moments in your life when you own your very, very first home. Mm-hmm. And it should be a wonderful and good experience. Do I negotiate the heck out of what I need to do for my clients? Yes. Do I strategize for hours and hours on end? Yes. Do I call the agent on the other side to understand where their client is and what their needs are? Yes. It's all part of the process.
And that's similar, I guess, in that hospitality industry, because we have so many different perspectives and I always think of it in terms of, I don't know, a luxury 5-star hotel. So there's, components that come in from the food and beverage area and from the rooms division. All of that are components that have to be built into how we are going to do this contract negotiation with a group. Stay with us and pay, $500 a night for their rooms, as opposed to them going to a hotel down the street where it's $300 a night. So very interesting how you pull it together, but I'm glad you still keep connected from a hospitality perspective, because
it is, though. I mean, because that's really what the hospitality and the real estate in the real estate industry, that's how they're combined. It's service.
Right.
It's service. It is sales. Clearly it's sales, but more importantly, it's what service you're going to give. And you have to understand the industry in order to give that kind of service.
Wow.
It's our job to educate ourselves. So
you did talk about your strategy, and I think to some degree the complexity of the transactions that you have to do and how important it is to make them seamless. But can you give our audience a bit of a understanding of how you approached the really challenging negotiation? Do they just nag on forever and ever, or is it a start and stop, start and stop?
I've never had a start and stop, start and stop. No. Every negotiation and every transaction is completely different. You've got the one seller who isn't selling their property for one reason or the other, and then you have the buyer who has a home sale contingency. And how do you navigate both of those aspects with a kickout clause or with inspections or anything else? It's every single transaction that I do has been different. There haven't been two the same. So it's really, really hard to give you a definitive response. It depends on the market conditions. It depends on finances. It depends on what they want. It depends on the seller and how motivated they are. There are so many nuances involved in it, but I think what's unique about me and my experiences is that I remain flexible always and adaptable always. And it's worked. It really, really has worked. You have to be patient sometimes. You can't be too overly eager. And that goes back to my biggest challenge. You have to be a good listener. And you have to be able to find some kind of compatibility,
Mhm.
something in common that drives it forward.
But
And
I also think the way you had said earlier about you want to get a win-win, I think
yeah,
that as a part of that strategy means that you are looking out for both. And the challenge is to look at, what is it that they both need? And how can we
yeah,
kind of in there? Because sometimes it may be, the buyer and the seller who feels as though that they are at opposite ends, but they may be closer than they realize. And I guess that's where
exactly.
comes in to make that happen. So,
And how do you get there? I think learning how to communicate with one another,
mm,
and then the agents talking to each other, and the collaboration is really, really, really key in a successful transaction. It really is.
So, as I had mentioned earlier, I read through some of your reviews, and clearly you have been very accomplished by the acknowledgement of your customers and the awards that you've received from your industry. But what do you believe truly builds a long term trust and loyalty within real estate today? I will also point out we bought our home 27 years ago, 26 years ago, and we still have a relationship with our realtor. He was,
Yeah.
he bought and sold my mother's home twice, and that's how we actually bought our home from him. But we're still very good friends with him. He's a horrible driver from taking you from property to property. I mean, he has his listings and he has his Google, and he's driving with one hand and he's on the phone at the same time. But he was a really cool guy.
Well, you can't be perfect. You can't have it all. So my biggest challenge is I don't do well with directions at all. I don't know my right from my left. I don't know if it's because I'm left-handed, but I'll say make a left, but I mean make a right. So 9 times out of 10, I'll end up giving my phone to the client and say, "Get us there. I can get you home." I definitely know Philadelphia, but there are some areas that I go into not every day. I don't know. New roads, new turns. But I think what builds these lasting relationships and these 5-star reviews is trust. It's integrity. It's saying the hard things, but knowing that they're true. And a relationship starts way before. Sometimes it happens. Okay, I want to see this property, found you on Google. Can you show it to me?
Mhm.
Sometimes that happens. But most of the time, you're meeting them, it's a referral, you're developing a relationship, you're finding some kind of commonality, and they're learning to trust you. If you don't have trust, it makes it that much more difficult because then they're wondering, are you negotiating on my behalf? Are you listening to me? Are you telling me this just so that I'll sign that paper? There are realtors out there like that, not a lot of them. None of the ones that I've worked with have been like that. We're all solid, good people that just want to fulfill your dream of owning a home. And I do keep in touch with my clients. Some clients are harder than others, Greg. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some people that I literally just forget their name. It's not on purpose. It's just I forget their name. And then there are others that I keep in touch with all the time. Do I buy a lot of tchotchkes and do I buy a lot of dinners or send them gifts every year? No, but I genuinely care about how they're doing. Are they loving their home? I love hearing stories like that. How are their kids adapting? Are you happy? So I do keep in touch, but I'm new to Pennsylvania. I've only been here 7 years. So I really don't have that clientele that would be as incredible as having your agent for 20 something years. I didn't have a sphere of influence when I moved here. It's only been 7 years. And I have been very, very successful. So I'm assuming people trust me. But I do think that's what gets people to come back. A lot of my business, believe it or not, is referral based now.
I would imagine. And I would say, that trust that you've described is really what allows for someone who's purchased a home, falls in love with the home, and lives there for 5, 10, 15 years or whatever. You just immediately come to mind, maybe even
Yeah.
for the firm itself that you represent, just because of the relationship they have with you. So listen, I know that you and I could talk forever, but we're kind of limited to a time so that we can allow for our listeners to continue to do the kind of fun things that they do. But our final question, which I think is probably the most enjoyable question, is that the podcast is entitled, Something to Say. So we love to ask those who we are interviewing, what do you have to say? So Naomi, what do you have to say?
I've thought a lot about this question, and this is what I have to say. Don't be afraid of life's unexpected turns. Lean into the uncomfortable. Learn from it. Gather information. Educate yourself and go out there and explore the world. It is exceptional, at least to someone like me. It might not work for everyone, but lean into the uncomfortable. I think that's the biggest thing that I have done in all my years of life so far. And it has rewarded me time and time and time again. And the other thing is, everything happens for a reason. You might not like the reason. And at some point, clarity always presents itself. So be open to it.
You are amazing. That was the perfect close, because for us, the idea of the podcast is for those who are listening that they can become inspired and that they are hearing perspectives from individuals who truly have applied it to their life, their work, but to share that in a way that is relevant and very digestible to our audience, what we look for. So I thank you so much for sharing that and being a guest on our show. And I would love to sit down and have a glass of wine, and we can talk about even our deeper stories as we go forward. So Naomi, I once again thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you, and I can't wait to have that glass of wine. It'll be our second time having a glass of wine, and I can't wait.
Well, absolutely. I just will say that this particular episode has been extremely meaningful to me, and I'm so glad that we're able to finally do this. And to those of you who listen to Something to Say, that's a wrap for this particular episode. We encourage you to stay tuned for more inspiring conversations with voices of individuals from diverse backgrounds sharing their passion. So until next time, this is Greg DeShields.
Thank you for tuning in to Something to Say. We trust you found some valuable insights and takeaways that can help you find your passion. Don't miss out on future episodes. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on your preferred platform. We value your feedback and suggestions, so let us know how we can serve you better. Keep the conversation going and stay inspired until we meet again. Take care and happy listening.